Well, good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen of all ages. It's time for the WADcast, that writer, actor, director podcast, where we get together once a week to talk about writing, acting, directing, and all of those positions in the industry in between. I am Josh, joined as always by what's-his-face over there. You played hooky. Oh, I gotta do that thing that makes me money. Is it me? Oh.
Describe yourself.
Hello, everyone. So what I do is a lot of different things in camera department that have to do with camera movement. While I've done, like everybody else, a bunch of jobs where I'm doing all of the cinematography or all the DP work, and I do have those clients, what actually I do on like the A-list professional level is camera operating, and then also as a DIT and a high-speed technician. So like not being pretentious or any of that kind of stuff, but like chances are if you've watched TV in the past 10 years or been online, seen like ads in slow motion on the side edge, chances are I was one teching the camera on that.
Okay. So how about this? How about we play a little association game? As I said, I've known you for damn close to 14 years now.
Okay.
It's been a while. I made oh my god, dude! I'm feeling old here. I wasn't pushing 40 when we met, but
You weren't?
So no. I know I looked like it back
wow.
in college, but I was also always strung out, and I was sampling with only the finest of the hidden liquors in our college dorms. But no. So I actually now I think I told you about this, Josh. My very first experience in acting was actually for Ryan. I think you grabbed me in the hallway. You're like, "Hey, do you skateboard?" I'm like, no, not really. Why? You look like one. I need you. Come here. I was just walking past the door. I think I was actually going to class. And
I believe that's how Meryl Streep got discovered.
I had to speak I had to talk like what was it, like a snowboarder or something, Ryan? It was something, but I had long hair. I had a beanie and everything else on, and looks can be deceiving. I had never been on a snowboard, and I hadn't been on a skateboard in like 10 years at that point.
Yeah, it was for I needed somebody to be there to counter read to the actors. It was for a casting call, and I didn't have any of like my ducks lined up or anything else like that. So I found him, and like it ended up working out perfectly.
And that's how we learned
ever since. No.
And then you even came to my going away party.
Yep. Well,
that got rained out.
We won't go into that. Like, digress into a different.
That is a long time ago. Either way, long story short, we've been friends for a long time, and so there's been a lot of things that have happened since then. But enough about our friendship, as magical as it is. Let's talk about you, Ryan. So what exactly sparked your innovation to get into just working with cameras and being behind the scenes on sets and things of that nature? Like, what really got you motivated into doing it?
Um, at first, I just wanted to make surf videos. That's where I I had a common surf friend, like an older mentor named John Russell, and he taught me about cameras, and he had like, I can't remember what camera he was using, but it was like a prosumer camera on the beach, and he edited together videos, and he even like got some distribution on one. Well, he taught me during those like middle school to high school years uh, about stuff and things of editing cameras and so on and so forth. So that's what got me motivated, and then just one thing snowballed into another, where I was looking for jobs and just picking up little things here and there, and then all of a sudden, like, the school called me because they had heard of me somehow or something of that sort. So I ended up going to school, and then that snowballed into my next career. I just, yeah, that's just all connected.
Now, when you say school, are you talking about AI or?
Yeah, I mean, I did it in high school also. Because I had that surf mentor, by the time I went to high school, I had already known like all this stuff about the cameras and everything else like that. So I was able to pretty much co-teach the teacher that was in the high school so that he would know how to do stuff also. And yeah, but then what I mean they had heard of me is that was for AI. Like college we went to, that was just a random call. Like they called me up, they're like, hey, we heard about you, come to our school. I'm like, okay. And then got there and didn't know any better, didn't know, it's entire like technical school, just corporation run. It's just, it's just like, okay, moving on to the next thing. And yeah, that's that.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to steal the show from you, Josh. Josh, I will let you pick up shining the bright light in Ryan's face while we interrogate him.
Well, thank you, Brandon. One of the main themes of the show has been since day one, hey, if there's something that you want to do, that you should go out and start doing it. Whether it's writing or acting, just go out there, put yourself out there, start doing it. Now, it seems like someone in your position kind of sits on a fence, right? Because on the one hand, yeah, if you get your hands on some equipment, you have an opportunity to shoot. But on the other hand, when it comes to actually doing it in a professional industry setting, that there's some training involved, that you actually have to know what you're doing. So for those people out there that are kind of leaning towards the home movie route, would you say it's important that they get some actual formal training to do what you do?
Not at all. I am not a believer in fake it until you make it, but I wouldn't say that any sort of formal training is needed. Ever since I got my degree, not a single person has asked for it ever since. It's just all been about relationships and bridges I've burned, mistakes that I've made, and most of my training comes from one-on-one with professionals, and majority of professionals out there are very, very open about having people there to learn. There's all sorts of free events all the time. Vendors, they'll take out their time to sit down with you one-to-one, and it's one of those things where, yeah, sure, they're trying to pitch their product, but if you listen in between the gaps and you're like, well, show me, then all of a sudden they're teaching you that piece of camera. They're teaching you that software. They're teaching you that hardware. Same thing goes for, one second. Excuse me. Same thing goes for on-set experience, and then also over listening into the other departments, and then, being divisive. Like, if you see that they're busy, of course, don't annoy them. You just do your job, and you do your job well. If you're curious about it, say that you're curious about it, because if you're helpful enough, and like on the way to camera department anyways, like, you have questions, like, hire on as a PA, tell them you're interested in camera. It won't be on every job, but sometimes the camera department gets a dedicated PA. And then if the camera department actually likes you, that becomes a common thing where they start requesting you, and then it snowballs from there. And while some people go, including myself, so I'm talking about a route that I didn't take, if you end up going 0 to 60 from one thing to another, you just have to know how to respect people. And it's all about those kinds of relationships. And people will show you things if you ask them. And honestly, there's enough YouTube videos and everything else like that. There's very little I've actually been asked if I was certified for. They ask if I'm union or non-union, but that's a whole different conversation. But they typically don't ask for any like direct certification. If you know what you're talking about, you know what you're talking about.
Okay. So pretty much it's like start at the base level, work your way up.
I think that is honestly the smartest, because it cures a lot of learning gaps that could cost you important relationships down the road.
Oh, yeah. It's actually a conversation I had with somebody in a group on Facebook talking about how, because you and I we've had extensive conversations over the years, and I remember you bringing up that point about how no one had ever asked you for your degree once. It was all about just your relationship building and everything else. And I had told this person, like, honestly, I know people that have gone on to do things in film without going to film school, and they just didn't believe me. I'm like, well, film school is not a requirement. It's just more or less training. The important stuff you think you will learn in film school, like how to find money, they don't teach you. So
no, training and relationships.
Yeah, that's really it.
And then you also have to, I guess the biggest thing for me is in college, like, I'd already done semi-professional stuff by the time I entered college. So during college, whenever anybody would like mess up on something or, not follow through, and they're just kind of doing their college thing, I feel like I held it against people too hard. And I burned some bridges that, there's no reason to do that. Like, they might not even be somebody in film industry, just in general, like, who they are during those college years isn't going to be who they are later on. And then also with the same burning bridges thing, like, you don't know who's going to end up sleeping with who ends up getting a rich uncle, who has a parent die and leave them a large fortune. And then all of a sudden, just because, they paid for a chunk of Instagram followers or something, they're all of a sudden directing this, small commercial. And it's just like, they somehow made it all that way, and you never know what's going to end up. And you have to have that outside of like, okay, am I looking at them as an adult later on, or am I looking at them as, a college kid?
Okay. Well, I was actually going to ask you something, and I don't know if it's, it's only because I got a kick out of it, but someone had asked me before about a picture they saw of the I Love Ryan Campbell sticker. And this does, but doesn't have to do with these talking points. But you had told me before, like, okay, Josh, I'll put it this way. I went to I think it was like a small little convention kind of deal, if I'm not mistaken, for camera operators and just camera techs, things of that nature. Um, and I see the sticker that says "I love Ryan Campbell" on just like on the side of a wall. I'm looking at this like, the hell's this? And I ask Ryan, and he just pulls out like a stack of these stickers. And you had actually told me that you had posted those things around because you like, and I think it was like a hashtag or something. If I forget the whole thing, but you said you had actually gotten people curious enough to hire you based off of those stickers.
Yep. Like I said, it's about who you know, except you don't know all of the people who know you, if that makes sense. Like, if for some reason maybe you didn't get the call, but if somebody just recommended you for something, but it was with like 5 other people, just to be fair, that producer sometimes holds on to that list, and then you'll end up cycling through somehow, and you don't know that person whatsoever. What I was trying to do it started off as a joke, first of all. There was a AC who was grumpy with me, and we
No.
No names or anything like that, but he was grumpy, just kind of like in general, like he was having like a bad day, and then I made some crappy joke, and then he kept getting grumpier. So I printed out this sticker and stuck it on his stuff because he was being like such an openly jerk. And then his stuff ended up on other jobs, and then some people ended up seeing it. And then once I got feedback like, "Hey, we saw your thing," I'm like, "Oh man, this is just like, I don't know, graffitiing a train or something," where I hate that, but other, like, you can spam people's stuff with stickers. So then I started putting it in places that absolutely didn't belong to a lot of also different companies, and then people started actually requesting them. And then I've handed out stickers that say, "I love Ryan Campbell." And whenever that person looks at a list of six names or whatever, that's the name that's going to stick out.
I'm sorry. I had to bring that up. That's I never stop laughing about that every time I even think about it.
It reminds me of the old Vonage commercials. Remember those?
Oh my God!
When VoIP
you're going back. Wow.
when VoIP was kind of in its infancy, a little backstory here. There's this company called Vonage, and they ran these ads. Made no sense. Did not talk about the product. Did not say what it was. Just Vonage, and that's all. You had no idea. Just Vonage is coming. And yet it just became so intriguing. Everyone's like, what is it? And this was right around the time, that the internet was becoming ubiquitous, and everybody was getting their connections. But you had no idea. It built up such intrigue that by the time that it came around, it was like, oh, it's Skype.
It's Skype.
But yeah, just the idea though that these stickers that people are just seeing everywhere, and then have this name that's kind of stuck in their head, like by Menon,
Yeah.
It's like you see Vantage. Oh, I want Vantage.
But
what is it? I don't know.
It is definitely, don't like, so a lot of people will get like pissed if you slap stickers on our stuff. Going back to a graffiti thing, they see it kind of personal, and it's like that, and I've got some grumpy calls from some family members being like, "So you're Ryan?" and and the more thing to note is that they were all very easily removed. Was reading the area beforehand. And then lastly, but not least, having a good reputation where people wouldn't think that I'm doing it maliciously.
Yeah, I got you. Just as like a prank kind of deal or as a joke,
right.
But not a joke. Yeah.
So I don't want, and it's never my intention to do anything maliciously, but it has to be paired with, by the time that they do ask a friend about you or they do end up Googling you don't have a bad reputation for just being a crappy person,
Yeah, no, mischievous and, pretty much maliciousness are two completely separate things. And usually you can look at, any kind of mischief, be like, oh, what a douche. But okay, that's kind of funny.
But just so you kids know, all you kids out there listening right now, the secret thing, it's already been done. You can't do it.
Yeah.
No homages.
We definitely were not. We definitely were not thinking about doing that with the WADcast at all. Like, it didn't give me an idea to do that remotely. I, definitely didn't print up like 20 stickers on a trial run with a website on it, and that never happened. So,
look, all I'm saying is, if you're out there listening now, don't try to, bite on Ryan's style. That was his gimmick. That was his thing.
Yeah, and I've already done it. So yeah,
don't be a poser.
Be original.
Like Brandon.
Okay. Like the WADcast. Okay, the WADcast is a poser. Thank you. But okay, so there is one thing I told you I was going to ask you, and okay. I'm not going to. Obviously, I'm not going to. And I'm sorry to take a question away from you here, Josh, but I wanted to ask him this. With no names attached to it, obviously, I don't want to do anything to your career or have anyone message us and be pissed off. What was like? Give us like an example of like just the worst day on set. I know that you love your camera work so much. If people don't know you, but I know from seeing seeing your place and also seeing like where you store everything. Ladies and gentlemen, this man absolutely loves everything about camera work. I mean, just it completely envelops him. So that said, the shittiest day you've ever had on set, or at least say one of the top 10 WTF moments. See it, Josh? No F word. That you've had so far.
Okay, so whenever you told me to prep this, there's a couple different things I thought of, but okay, I could divvy it up. Okay. So the worst one emotionally for me was a director who is an A-list director, does A-list content, is notorious for lots of stuff out there. And he ended up he made one actress cry, he made the scriptie cry, and he gave somebody else a bloody nose. Oh. And he's notorious for it. And people won't work with him, and some people have to be paid extra to work with him. And yeah, so seeing that all that, I guess, would be my saddest bad day, because, people just don't need to be treated like that. Especially because you're virtually, untouchable in that kind of sense. So that would be the worst emotional day. The worst technical day, I ended up, a lot of A-list directors can change things last minute, and A-list DPs also. And they had a camera package that we're going to go with, prepped it, everything is good and solid, get there and they want to do something completely different that it's, not that the device isn't even meant for, and trying to scramble, and they're like, why isn't this done? It's just like, this other camera came out of nowhere. And trying to scurry and jimmy rig parts to be able to make the shoot work. That was probably the most stressful, because a lot of times, it could seem, a little bit trivial, a little bit silly, but, everybody watching you, how you handle stress, how you handle facts, how you handle each individual item, your actual knowledge of each individual item to be able to quickly problem solve things and everything else like that. All of that really does stack up where there goes your next hire. And it was just all because of one little slip up during a moment's stress when you didn't react well. So I always try to react well, because, by the end of the day, stress-wise, that movie, it's not going to cure cancer. Your movie is not going to be the one that joins the whole world together in world peace. Like, it can be extremely good, it could be extremely notable, it could be extremely beautiful, but in all reality, whenever it comes to how you're handling life and everything else like that, it's still just a movie, it's still just a commercial, but people get so stressed out over it.
Well, yeah, I can understand the stress. You and I have both worked on quite a few sets so far, and I see the stress, and I see people handle it like just a champ. But yeah, I could think of like one or two movies I think actually might cause cancer. But okay, again, Josh, I'm sorry to take over a second time and just kind of just bump you to the side there. So please, sir, I will let you
move on with our that caused cancer, but they never talked about it again. And I did apologize for making all those people cry, so it's okay. You could have said my name. Just throwing that out there. I've actually led a production one time for a short film, and the thing is, when I was asked, hey, why are you doing so much prep? It's just a little thing. It's like, well, if everything goes perfectly, this will be a really quick, easy thing. But it's not. They're like, how do you know it's not? It's like, because I know. I've watched enough of these things unfold to where I know that I'm going to need something at some point, and chances are it's going to be the one thing that I don't pack extra. Why? Because fate, karma, whatever you call it. Now, I want to know, what is the one piece of equipment, if it's not supplied to you, what piece of equipment do you always make sure not only do you have that, but you carry extra, just to be on the safe side?
Man. Oh, that's such a terrible question. I overpack for everything because I'm so paranoid, and I've been in. Whenever you look at a really good operator or an operator's assistant or whatnot, and you see all of the multitudes of stuff, each one has a story, and it's just like, oh, you had a bad experience, didn't you? If
Let me rephrase it. I'd like to rephrase it. Okay. because what you said was interesting to me. It's like looking at somebody. I mean, I don't know what you call it. In some professions, you got your gig bag, right? Your bag, your gear that you have for work.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
from if you're talking to somebody that's in your line of work, they can look at your gig bag and say, "Oh, that's happened to you before, so you have that, and that's happened to you before, so you have that." Now, I'm just gonna come completely around and say, or ask, rather, in your area of expertise as a camera op, what do you carry? What? Just a quick little rundown of what the little boys and girls that want to be camera operators in the future. What kind of things will they need to start? Like,
are you talking about like a toolkit?
Yeah, what a toolkit.
Okay, yeah, that's a way easier question. Thank you. But it's not necessarily a short ones because Brandon, you've seen my garage.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
so starting at the basic. Even if you're a PA, have a Sharpie, a pencil, a ballpoint pen, and some grip tape on you, and some paper tape on you at all times. From there, you get into all the different varieties of those things. You get into the actual camera markers. In my kit, my operating kit differs from all the rest. You said operating kit. I carry extra camera handles. I carry extra rods and rails to relocate it, like to a shoulder mount. I carry a shoulder mount pad. I carry a little. Hello?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you hear that too? No? Okay.
No?
I carry a little other pad that can go over an Apple box. At the operator, I carry a separate monitor. I carry separate articulating rails, even though the ACs typically ask you beforehand and get things right. I just want to make sure that I can't do my job badly because this item is not there. Also going into operating, I also pack like a normal AC kit. Some operators just come to set completely taken care of, but again, I've had a lot of bad experiences, so at least bring in the car or something, just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you kids out there were writing things down. If not, you could always, I guess.
Oh, it's
rewind.
It's also a kids thing. Camera department. Sorry. Adjustable wrench, standard and metric Allens, some lengths of 2-inch Velcro, some bongo ties, some night eyes twist ties. I've already mentioned the different varieties of gaff tape, different varieties of camera tape. You also have line tape. You'd want to carry a voltmeter, extra batteries. You want to carry dry erase markers. You want to carry lens cleaner. You want to carry lens tissue. You want to carry monitor cleaner. You want to carry a monitor cloth. You want to carry a thing of canned air to be able to spray things off. I've delved into probably about 1/10 of my camera bag so far. So I don't want to drag on your show too long.
No, it's okay. But and this camera bag is just the stuff, and mind you, I'm sure it has grown quite a bit in excess. Only thing I've really ever helped you on at all was, I think, that wedding back in 2012. But the thing is the camera bags that you brought with were, I'm just saying, even back then, I think you had 6 or 7 bags with you.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was getting into because I don't do weddings.
Yeah, well, no,
So
I'm just saying, you brought it was like we were going camping, but no, we weren't. we were hanging out top and downtown LA, but
that was me. again, previous bad experiences, trying to be ready for everything that I ended up seeing, because like you can never be over prepared for something unless it costs you. Like, oh, I was so over prepared for this, I didn't bring this thing. But being over prepared for a lot of different situations is definitely key. There's definitely a kind of camping aspect to it, where you have everything that you need to survive, you have everything you need to stay warm, you have everything you need to eat in case all of a sudden they decide not to break for lunches and they're just paying you like super overtime. Having all those things so that you can be the best at your job.
I think I had asked you because I'd asked you, and I forget how many cameras were used. I can't remember if it was like 1 or 2 or what, but for the amount of bags versus the camera usage, I asked you what all the other bags were for, and you're like, backups and contingencies.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha. That's smart. So, but yeah, so this is like, so we covered a few things here. So, I mean, what kind of stuff do you ever get into doing your own projects? And if you were to do your own project, what do you think your role would be in that project?
I enjoy, it's not what pays the bills, but I do enjoy doing my DP and cinematography work. I have no interest in directing, to be honest. I have ideas for writing, but, I'm a terrible writer.
No, you're not exactly. Our humor is not exactly the most socially acceptable, but
Sure.
we wrote a pilot episode for something over the course of like a day and a half, and that's why we were not exactly sober, but
sober for any of us. Yeah.
But we got it done, and it was hysterical. But
if I could do anything though, I wish the entire filming surfing was a lot more lucrative. Typically it's a bunch of fanboys hoping for like the perfect shot, or just a bunch of people that know how to work the market waiting still for that perfect shot for just like pennies on the dollar, but they're out there and they're having fun. But I've always wanted to be able to have backups in case I had a wife, and now I do, and in case I have kids, and someday I will. I just want some sort of backup plan. But if it was one of those like, oh, if you had all the money in the world, like what would you do for fun? Like I'd still be out there lighting stuff, shooting stuff, and I would want to do something around the entire surfing market. And yeah.
Okay, I understand that. So far from what we've talked about, one of the important lessons that we've not really touched on through these 10 episodes of the WADcast is the importance of networking. And of course, on set, it's not a shabby place to run into people that work in the business, right? So when you're on set, and I don't mean expressly for the purposes of having people remember your name, but for your job, who are the people that you are talking to directly to be able to do your job correctly? I understand, the director, might come up, tell you what needs done. DP, do actors come up and say, this is my good side, make sure you get that? So who are you talking to on set?
Oh, interesting. Again, it depends on the role directly, but my normal is talking to the DP, talking to the director, and also interacting with the client and interacting with the DIT, special effects, and yeah, that I would say is and also post. That's another important one, is to have a direct line with them. There's Sometimes you can end up seeing the hierarchy of who you have to take your orders from, even if you're at the top, because it gets really weird whenever the client ends up hating the director, and then they end up firing the director mid-shoot without telling anybody, and then all of a sudden one of the clients who's been sitting in a chair this whole time staring at their iPhone, like, starts directing. It's just like, oh, okay, so we take our orders from you now. And then, the other director comes back on set and it's just like, oh, wait, you. So everything is always very, very fluid. And that goes back again to what we're talking about with relationships with people. You never know what's going to happen in their life that's going to affect your life and your profession. The person who is a PA next to you one day, all of a sudden is the UPM on the shoot, and it's just like, whoa, where'd that come from? And there's no idea where it came from, but the other day they're getting people coffee, and then all of a sudden they're doing stuff outside their pay grade and also outside their knowledge, and it's just like, how did that even happen? But it happens. So you have to keep all those relationships healthy, and there has to be a lot of grace with people who do stupid things.
Yeah, Brandon.
Dude, my list of stupid things is it's such a long list. But like on set, I try to keep it professional, and when asked to write something, or if there's even an interest, if I have an interest in writing something, as stupid as I can be, and Ryan, and even you, Josh, can definitely attest to it, I turn my shit around, like the best and most expeditious way I can, while being professional in what the person is trying to gain in their vision. But my question though, Ryan, is and knowing how much both you and myself disdain people who lie about stuff. Something that that you said was kind of reminiscent to something that our past guest Justin from 2 weeks ago said, where the worst thing you can do is lie about experience or lie about who you know and what you've worked on, because it will be found out real quick. So that being the case, have you encountered anything where you were working with someone, or I guess on a set with someone who I don't know if I should say got found out, or if it was just like one of those deals where it was clear like they were supposed to have this kind of experience, but through their work had like probably the bare minimum.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen it. Everybody is willing to undercut everybody else, and it's just like, okay, well, you get what you pay for. And I think that you get what you pay for has, not up-and-coming producers and everything else like that, but a lot of the experienced ones, they know that, I've missed out on some jobs because I heard from a friend a job was happening, and it was a small job. And I was just like, okay, I'll price it as a small job. It was my favor to him, and I was happy to work with him again. And I lost out on the job because they're like, you know what? You're not a $1,200 operator. You're only a $900 operator. We want the $1,200 operator. It's just like, I was trying to cut you a deal. So that backfired. It's really hard to figure out the rates and everything else like that from there. But going back to your question, sorry.
It's okay.
The industry is so small, and the who's who of the industry is even smaller, and they run in these like their own little circles of recommendations and friends and everything else like that, and sometimes they intersect and sometimes they don't, and they bounce off each other. All of those people talk to one another, and it's not that big of a group. So if you're lying about who you are, everybody's going to start recognizing that name, and they're going to be like, yeah, he said he could do this, came in, turned out he was unexperienced, turned out he didn't know this program. I'm never going to call him again. And the extra quotations there would be like, or the extra, not quotations, the extra emphasis there would be like, I'm not going to ever call him for the rest of my life. I know people on my list that I will never call for another thing as long as I live. And that is enough. Like, I'm not even that fancy, but it's one of those things where, yeah, I still have, there's a weird truck going by. I still have a strong connection in the industry. And if you show up on the same set as me, same call sheet, I'm going to see if you could get replaced.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a certain level of expectation, then that's just not met, or it's underwhelmingly met, I should say. Then yeah, right. I mean, that's absolutely understandable.
So going back to what I said, the fake it until you make it. You know, it's worked for some people. I've never taken that risk. I've always gone for some sort of training, reached out to companies for like a one-on-one and on something before I said like, hey, I know this. I'm not an expert in it, but I know it. And then you do it enough times and then you're an expert in it. But the whole entire like, oh yeah, I got this covered. And then, you know, you go home, you watch a YouTube video and you call it good. Like that's not going to cut it. You should have the manual memorized also if you're going to try to play that game. Like, yeah, the people talk too much and people have weird relationships with other people. Like all of a sudden somebody else's ex-boyfriend, ex-wife, whose sister mothers, there's a lot of nepotism.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah, it gets really weird fast if you're not on the right list, and it's going to hurt you in jobs, and it's going to hurt you in income. And while you could keep on like going by trying to stab at things, like I've seen my friends fail who have lied about stuff, and job went south, and they had to rev themselves back up and start all over again, poking at a different tactic. And, you know, if that job costs you a DP, then, or it costs you a director, then all of a sudden they're going to go on directing stuff and you're never going to be a part of it because you failed. And everybody talked about it. And it's a terrible snowball.
Firework. Okay.
You know,
Josh.
This is going to be hard to say. I have a confession to make, everybody. Jonah Hill's not my cousin. I just said it because I wanted to be cool and thought it might help me get ahead, but
that would make you cool.
Absolutely not true.
Well, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Jonah Hill of all people because he's actually an example. I like Jonah Hill, but I think he was friends with Dustin Hoffman's son or something like that, and that's how he got started. So, I mean, it's, you know, somebody knew somebody. That's it.
And you talked about, you know, the fake it till you make it mentality and the fact that it actually has worked for some people. And I think the thing to remember here is that the reason we know about these guys that made it is because they are the exception, not the rule. More often than not, if you do this, you're going to get kicked to the side, if not just kicked out,
blacklisted
altogether. And I'd really hate to think that we here doing the WADcast would perpetuate that idea that we say all the time, just do it. But when we say that, please realize that we're not just saying, you know, go out, try to raise, you know, $200,000 to do a project that you have absolutely no skill in whatsoever, no matter what the job. In some cases, it's easier than others, but with every position in this business, you usually move up based on the skills you acquire as you work. Would you say that's correct?
Absolutely. And
I mean, okay, look at the room. It's definitely not the perfect example of someone going, I want to make a movie. I have the money to do it, so I'm going to do it. It's not famous, it's infamous. Very important distinction. But even then, it was the personality of the creator that put it over the top, and quite frankly, not judging our listeners, but I don't think anybody out there is quite the personality that Tommy Wiseau is. But that's me speculating.
Oh no! I mean, there's ways to handle yourself on set, and oh God, I don't know if you've read the book, The Disaster Artist, instead of just seeing the movie. But my Lord, the book is, God, horrible. But real quick, so Ryan, you were talking about earlier about writing up pricing and everything else, and so those people who are just toying with the idea of I have a camera or I'm filming things on my phone and someone's going to call me someday and I'll be a professional cameraman working on big stuff. Sure. Obviously, a phone and a camera are two completely different realms. You show me a camera and I look at the same oh, where's the record button? I know how to press that. What
makes the movie come out?
Yeah. Record makes the camera go vroom. But so working in the film industry, more often than not, is pretty much subcontracted work, or contracted work, depending on whichever level you're on. But the thing is so you would, how would you actually, how do you go about if it's not where someone calls you up? Is all of your work done through people that call you and ask you for pricing, or do you ever end up in moments where you actually have to go out and forage for food, so to speak?
I personally am lucky enough that I don't have to forage for food. Okay. I hate talking about myself, so it's weird saying that.
Well, you're being interviewed, sir. So
yeah, that did take progress from reaching out to people, but some people, if you're worried about them forgetting your name, forgetting your presence, reach out to them. If some time goes by, reach out to them again. If a longer time goes by, maybe reach out to them again. Just ask them how they're doing. There's no reason that, it has to be another motorcycle. There's no reason why it has to be all business. If you look at it that way, then it's going to be ugly, because each one of these people has relationships that they're in. Each one of them has kids. Kids have names, so on and so forth, and all those are such important details to remember whenever you're trying to just treat them like a person. Whenever you start kissing butt, people see right through it. Some people enjoy it, and other people are just like, dude, stop. I would say... Wait, ask the question again, because I think I derailed. I apologize.
Sorry, I accidentally muted my speaker. No. The question was basically... Oh, wow, I'm sorry. 1 second. Sorry, bear with me. There you go. Sorry, I muted one speaker and I turned my actual speaker on. And I did it again. Bear with me. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. Just ringing in my ears there. So, yeah. So basically, what my question was, if you like, it was technically a two-parter where I didn't follow through with the second question, but
Sure.
when you go out and have to hunt down work, as any person
Oh,
getting started in
that's
the
right.
industry does, when you have to do that, what
Yeah.
are the steps you take? And like, what was the process when you got started? When you were actually in that process of calling people, and how would you find out that they were in fact looking for a camera person, and how did you go about pricing it? Just stuff like that. Like, what all goes into that?
Okay. For somebody starting up, it's extremely easy. You put on a tool belt. Like I said earlier, you have your Sharpie visible, you have your ballpoint pen visible, you have a pencil, you have like a little pad of paper there, you have a little tiny roll of gaff tape, and you have some like work gloves. And I didn't mention the gloves earlier. And you see those little yellow signs around town saying like where shoots are and everything else like that. Like their security guards look scary, and if you do something stupid, yeah, they're gonna take you down, especially if there's an A-list person on set. But otherwise, everybody is really friendly, and you talk to a security guard and you're like, hey, can you point me to a production office? He'll point you to a production office, probably won't even escort you there. You walk in production office, and then you're like, hey, do you need any more help on your show? And they could be like, no. And then you're like, okay, well, here's my name and number. Leave it on a card, or ask them. Just be like, well, if you ever need anything, then just let me know. And I've known people that made a living just walking up to random sets, and yeah, they did need an extra PA that day because their day had already started, and they realized all the shit was hitting the fan. I can say that, I think.
You got, well, yeah, dude, I've dropped the F-bomb on the show so many times, you're fine with the shit.
Okay. And that's worked for them. With camera department, not so much. Most of that is, again, I'm trying to think of whenever I was starting out. Whenever I was starting out, it was all reputation. Just one job led to another, which is, again, a good reason not to be a jerk to people. But it was, I never cold called anybody. All of my networking was through the pursuit of knowledge. I wanted to know about a certain camera. I wanted to know about high speed. I wanted to know about how this works, how that works. And then all of a sudden, people understand your passion for it, and they'll continue to teach you. And maybe you'll just work at a rental house. I say just because that's not a bad thing. Maybe you'll work cleaning off some cases. Maybe you're cleaning off stingers from downtown LA that are covered in homeless people's stuff. Like excrement stuff, not like their personal belongings, but they do that sometimes to try to make it so electricians are like, I'm not even going to pick that up. We just need to write it off. It's too gross. And then they get keep all the copper and recycle copper.
It's a hell of a business strategy. I mean,
But as far as starting up, it's, if you want to do this, you should know why you're doing it, and you should know how things work. I think the best type of position you can be in is either things don't go your way, but you know why they didn't go that way, or things went your way and you know why they went that way. Once you start delving into the other end, things don't go your way and you don't know why, that's a bad place to be. So some people are like, oh, I have no interest in learning that. I don't even have the mental capacity. I don't feel like learning anything about camera. I just want to direct. And it's just like, how much better could your direction be if you knew how to command the camera to tell your story better? So it's important that you know all of these extra things. And you don't just pass them by the wayside because, it doesn't fit in your profession.
Okay. I mean, that's so. I mean, and all that's insightful, and it's like I ask you that because I work a regular 9 to 5 job while I pursue writing, and I've had someone that I guess saw they friended me on Facebook, and they saw a few things I was doing on set, and they were asking about oh, well, I want to get into camera work. I'm like, well, I mean, I can ask a friend of mine that works in that area, and then I just never got around to asking you. But I go home and work doesn't exist anymore, so I clock back in the next day. But such an asshole, and that sounds so pretentious there. But the thing is still, I did that for that sake. That way, I can bring that to their attention, and I feel that they're obviously not the only person thinking that way. Well, how would I even get into this? So for you to say it's as easy as it is, and I don't want to say easy, but just you have to actually pursue it.
Yeah.
And keep at it.
Well, not even keep at it. You just have to get the courage to go do it. So many, you have to imagine that the person before you also didn't do a good job. So there's also job openings everywhere. There's PAs that get wasted the night before and miss their call times. And it's just you were, this is non-union talking about here. So transpo's not driving a truck. A PA is driving the truck. And all of a sudden the camera truck's not there. That's all of a sudden a job opening for you. As far as getting started. So even if somebody turns you down, at least leave your name and number with them, because time passes by. They go through the old card deck that's getting a lot less popular as far as just putting their name in the phone and just add a PA by your name or anything else like that if you're starting out. Otherwise, if you're trying to go from 0 to 60, it's again about your reputation and about who you know, what you're able to finance yourself, what you're able to get completely distribution on, and it's going to that's going to take a lot of dedication also.
Okay.
So I think the moral of tonight's story is, one, they're not going to believe in you until you believe in you enough to go after it. They're not going to come to you and say, it's time for you to work on my production. Right?
No. They're never going to say that.
And I think the second moral, at least the second moral that I learned, was when it comes to getting into a business like this, whether it's in front of the camera, behind the camera, the first thing you need to do is figure out how to get into the room. That way you can at least know someone there is getting your name for something that might come up in the future. Getting in the room is pretty key, yes?
Absolutely.
I think we learned some lessons tonight.
Yeah, getting into the room is key. Sometimes it's as easy as just walking into it. After that, you need to make yourself memorable.
In a good way.
So, in a good way. Let me say, memorable in a good way. Not oh man, that one guy that comes in and never wears deodorant and I think we need a different office person. We're around too many clients today. We have too many clients in our office area. Memorable in a good way is definitely key, because if there's something as simple as you know what? That guy came back and we only had 2 crew members complain about their coffee orders. Like, yes, that's not what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life or anything else like that. Nobody sees you that way. But whenever push comes to shove on set and everybody else is stressed out, the best position that you can look at is, if I was in their shoes, what would I need right now? How would I want to be treated? And then you can easily figure out the rest. If you look at it as like, I'm just a PA, whatever, I don't get paid enough. Yeah, I've shot some stuff, you know, I've got all these YouTube things and so on and so forth. And you're trying to play a cool guy, and so it's like, okay, there's guys here, and this is also not to demean any position whatsoever. They do their jobs on set as professionals. There are professional PAs who are the best PAs out there. They know exactly what you need. They know how to put up a pop-up. They know the structure of the set. And they work every day, and they're able to make a living that way. So you can't disrespect the position that you're in. You need to do your job and do your job good. And if you can, make it memorable, because so many people don't end up hearing that, or they don't care enough. And, you know, if their next callback is only because they're either the cheapest or because nobody else was available. And that's not a spot that I feel particularly proud in.
Oh, absolutely. That's just skating by. So, I'm actually curious of your algorithm of just maybe like walking up to a studio and walking into the production office and be like, oh yeah, well, figure out, see if you needed some help on your show. As a writer, all I can think of is taking my ass down to one of the television studios where they produce or film the sitcoms, where they have the writing rooms and everything else. Just walk up to the guard and be like, where's the production office? Oh, it's right down there. Thank you, sir. You have a great day. You too. Awesome. I got past him. Production office. Slam down a script. I'm here to start working.
Yeah, you wouldn't have gone past the first security guard.
I'd work.
No, I'm talking about those little yellow
work,
signs. I'm not talking about walking at studios. I'm talking about those little yellow signs. Gotcha. But you also have to. This is about production jobs. Like, if you want to work in camera, if you want to work in lighting, if you want to work in grip, if you want to work in special effects, if you want to work in set decorating, set design, if you want to work in costume, if you want to work in makeup, any of those things, like, you know, again, if they're busy, leave them the hell alone. You're not that special. And just be like, hi, I'm really interested in this. And if they tell you to buzz off, take that hit and buzz off. Like, it's, you know, it's paying respects, because that same person who told you to buzz off could easily see you on set like the other, like, let's say you didn't buzz off. Let's say you went against the rules and you're trying to be, I don't know, over dramatic or overachiever. I never want to detract anybody from being that, because I try to be an overachiever myself. However, in that type of situation, if you are causing disruption to the set or the set's schedule or any person on the set, because maybe there's somebody in the room and you don't know how important it is that she stays in a good mood before she's just like, this whole shoot is off, because people make those calls. It gets really weird sometimes. You can offer it. They take it. They leave it. You leave. They have your number in their hand, and you can move on with things. I'm not meaning this for writers. I I have no experience in writing, and all of my stuff is in production. So I don't do that if you're a writer.
Oh yeah, no. I was just joking. Like, I mean, but how cool would that be, though?
Well, can I toss
Like,
out this
if you
hypothetical
guys,
real quick?
go ahead.
Okay, say you do want to be a writer, and say you do wind up at a studio, and say you do, just walk in and say, instead of saying, "I'm here to be a writer, give me a show," you say something like, like you said, "Hey, you need anything done around here?" Da 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 da. Who knows? Maybe they bring you on and say, "Yeah, we need somebody to be a gopher. Fetch some coffee, fetch this, fetch that." And to go back to what you were saying before, next thing you know, you're having these really brief maybe conversations, little back and forths with writers and other people that are actually doing what you want to do, and maybe you start developing a friendship or at least some sort of working relationship, and maybe one of these writers is like, you know what, hey, you're pretty cool, let me see what I can do to make sure you're not just some schlub that's going to be here forever. So yeah, to go back to what you said, it doesn't seem to be about the size of the job, but more about your willingness, A, to do it, and B, your ability to make connections with people, and I guess that's what you call networking, while you're doing these smaller jobs. Like we said before, just getting in the room is the most important thing. And to do that, to meet people and to, have even the lowest writer in the room on your side saying, this guy's got a couple of good ideas. That could be a game changer, could it not? For you personally.
Oh, absolutely. That entire scenario, I could picture happening. And there's really not, how do I put this? I think with the only thing that changes at the end of like, hey, this guy has some really good ideas, is there's a little gap missing in there where you made that person's life or their job easier. That's essentially what it's about. Like, yes, we want to tell the story, but whenever we're talking about like the structure of production or even the structure of that office scenario, you have to be okay knowing that you're there to make that person's life easier. And even in so, looking into it from a professional perspective of, if I was in their position, what would I want right now? What would I want to not have to worry about? And some of those things seem really, really trivial with some of the people's demands, certain requests or certain contract negotiations. Like, some of those are a little bit fluff. But going down again to the worker level of walk into that building and that writer that you assist, what are you doing to make his life easier? Because if you could put a actual, like, quotations on, this is how I make this guy's life easier, or how this person's life easier, this girl's life easier, like, if you can put that name on it, then more than likely the other person sees it. And if they don't see it, they feel it subconsciously. And you're doing a good job, and you're doing your job. And you're also not just barking in their ear, because you have to imagine how many other random emails and requests and family members that they have to end up pleasing. So if you're somewhere towards the bottom of that list, do your job, and do your job well. That is, I guess, the best piece of advice I could give. Whenever we've gotten some really noisy people in the camera department. A lot of times it's the behind-the-scenes guys. Sometimes the behind-the-scenes guys bring a better camera than what we're shooting on. But they're pitching themselves too hard. They're not reading the room of, like, this isn't the time for this. And also, I've been doing this for a living for the past decade. Understand that you know everything because you're just out of film school, but you need to slow your roll because I'm busy. There's been a lot of very, very, because you still overhear stuff and some people look stuff up, and there's been some really talented people who have just had no set etiquette, and they never learned that set etiquette, and they never, did the smaller jobs to try to train for it. And it's just like, you've done some really good stuff, and you have a lot of potential, but it's going to take you longer to get there if you aren't going to communicate with people correctly.
Well, I think that's quite a note to head out on. What do you think, Brandon?
No, I think so. No, Ryan, I greatly appreciate you being on the show and hanging out with us and actually talking about this kind of stuff because, ultimately, the whole point of this broadcast is, it's called Writers, Actors, and Directors, but it's also everything between, and that includes everything from just production assistants all the way up to the final setup with the director in the editing room. Everything all the way through. If I can get like a distributor on here, I'd be like, oh yeah, hell yeah, dude. No, I'm allowed one per show, right, Josh?
Yes.
Okay, I'd be like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, just...
We still meant the PG-13 rating. Good job.
Yes. So, but I mean, I'd be super excited about that. Like, so anyone we can get on the show, I enjoy having them on the show. Video, if you're listening, Mr. Producer, gentleman.
He's a great producer.
No, he really is. I would love to be able to afford to have him do stuff for me someday. But I'm getting there. But he's a great guy, really sweet guy. But like just having someone outside what I guess would be considered the expected parameters of what we discuss is something I really enjoyed talking about. But that's all I've got. Again, thank you very much. Just like the sticker, just like my sticker says, I love Ryan Campbell. And that's all I've got. So, Ryan, thank you very much. And Josh, I'll let you take us out from here.
All right, boys and girls, if you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight, don't forget to join us each and every week. Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here at the WADcast.com, semicorpods.com, semicorestudios.com. That way, if you want to join us live, you can join the conversation in the chat room. That way, you can have your questions answered by our guest or even by me and Brandon ourselves. It doesn't look like we don't have, once again, a cold reads going. So next week, I promise you, cold reads will be back if I have to take a branding iron and mark Brandon forever to write his turn.
I've been working, okay? I've been working. Everything, and you just made me look so bad considering I just said earlier that my turnaround time is pretty damn good and faithful to the expectations. And thank you for pointing out that I've been dropping the ball on writing for the show.
You haven't been dropping the ball, and you've just been putting real life in front of the podcast. And quite frankly, that's probably the only legitimate excuse I can allow you to have. But you can always follow me on Twitter at SkitComic, or you can follow my little group here called Semicore Studios at Semicore Studios. We do podcasts. That's what Semicore Studios does. And occasionally, gameplay videos, things like that. But tomorrow night, 10 p.m., the Backstage Slam Wrestling Podcast. Monday night, the Netflix, where you find out everything that's coming to Netflix instant streaming for the week in the United States. Sorry, Canada. Brandon,
Oh my God.
why don't you let people know where to reach you on the IG and Facebook?
Absolutely. Guys, just go to facebook.com/the WADcast. There's there's apparently a few other WADcasts out there. We're the good ones. So that's, yeah, oh man, I used I used my one earlier. Okay. F those guys. But, no, but, just go to our Facebook page, the WADcast. You'll see our nice little black and white banner that says WADcast Writers, Actors, Directors. And you can also tune into Instagram, in which case I've been dropping the ball on that too, Josh, for the last week and a half. Instagram.com/the WADcast, one word. And also, just like our Facebook page, has our cute little banner that Josh designed, black and white banner that says the WADcast for Writers, Actors, Directors. But if you want to make your life easier, just go to thewadcast.com. All of our social media links are at the very bottom between our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, personal address, phone number, social security cards, anything that you need to be part of our group.
Wait,
go down
can I
there,
interject?
follow us. What? Go ahead.
Can I interject?
Yep.
If you are an actor and you're listening to this also, please know that all of this information was just as important for you also, because the top actors out there, they know how the light looks and how it's working, and the top ones out there can shut down the set by saying, this is lit completely wrong, and tell the DP to do a better job. I'm not saying that, everybody out there is fancy enough to do that, but it is important to know what's going on to be able to improve your acting skills and where the camera is pointed and how the lens works and how all of these other people work. That way you're not being a jerk either, and you can improve your performance by playing to camera.
Okay, that's actually good advice. So everybody, hope you're listening. Hope you heard that. If you're hearing this afterwards, shame on you. You should have been here for the actual live broadcast. But but seriously, like Ryan said, just go out there, pay attention to this stuff, learn as much as you can about everything and all the kinks and every single one of the cogs and wheels that you can. But seriously, if you want to follow us, just go onto Facebook, go onto our website, thewadcast.com. All of our social media is at the very bottom. All those links, click on them, follow. The Cinecore Studios on YouTube. Go on there and follow us too for any updates. So that's pretty much all I've got. So Josh, Ryan, Brandon, thank you very much for being part of this tonight. It's been awesome as always. And
thank you for having.
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So on
that's not PG-13.
Wait. Coming to the show. Coming on to the show. Whatever. Thank you for attending our show. Okay?
Fair enough.
Okay. I'm done.
Well, as we always say, if you want to get out there, and if you want to be in this this crazy business called show, first, believe you can do it. Second, yeah, we always say go out there and do it. Just do it. Like Nike. But make sure you do it with a solid foundation of knowledge in the field you want to get into, and a willingness to do whatever job needs to be done. Well, I guess the only thing left to say is good night. See you next week, everybody.